Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. This is the last episode in our leveling up series. So we're going to do one more leveling up section, and then we'll wrap it up with some final thoughts. Friends, if you've enjoyed this or if you have any feedback, any thoughts, feel free to drop them in the comments, send us an email, send us a DM. We'd love to hear what you guys think about the series, and potentially if you guys would want to hear any other series that we can do. We're always open to more feedback. And at the end of the day, the most important thing about like recording these podcasts is hopefully that they're enjoyable for you guys and you can get something out of it. And it helps us a lot when people are like, yo, I want to hear something about this, something about this. It just helps us curate and create better content for you. So
yeah, I would be down to do something fun like level up or another topic that is not exactly coffee related. It just comes from us who are, coffee business owners or baristas, managers, stuff like that. But from our perspective, like what does leveling up in the sneaker game look like? I don't know. What does leveling up in like skateboarding look like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Something like out of the blue, like if people are like, oh, I wonder what your opinion is on this or something like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, it's almost time and we're almost due for another Q&A episode. So
it's true. We should
just throwing that out somewhere in the near future. We should consider doing that, which means, folks, if you're listening, please, like Mark already said this, I'll say it again. Send us feedback. Like we want to know, like one, I'm very curious in what people thought about the leveling up series, like if that resonated with people, if it didn't, or if it was just like, oh, that's all brand new stuff, never even thought about it,
right?
So I don't even know what to do with that. Either or, whatever it is, like please hit us up, because the feedback is, like you said, it's great for us being able to engage with people and create more value for people. So
100%. Well, it's the time of the batchy,
dude. I'm thinking about the podcast, like, would we ever create a podcast network? Like, this is just me, like, literally brainstorming on the fly live with you. Like, remember, what if, you and I have always said, like, what if we were, like, back in the day when we were brainstorming about coffee shops, when I lived on the East Coast, you lived on the West Coast, for, like, what if we ever created, like, a agency that had coffee kind of thing, like, creative agency just, like, hire a bunch of people who are creatives and just, like, have coffee, but also which was fun, but obviously it's like a whole different ball game. But because we've doing this podcast thing for a while, what if at some point we really leaned into creating a network of podcasts within the demographic or within the framework of Reflect What's Good? There's like different networks, like the podcast network that hosts. There's a very famous one that does like, oh man, I'm just blank, but there's one that has a very unique way of producing podcasts, and they have some big name podcasts in their network. Almost like, in music, like they have recording. Like a channel. Yeah.
Like a channel with sub podcast shows on there.
Yeah. Like, for example, well, it's like a record label in music.
Yeah.
Like that has this person.
They're signed on.
Yeah. Solid State Records or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So
that would be interesting.
Yeah,
that would be interesting. Actually, not a far out idea. Actually, that would be cool.
That would be like either you or hiring someone who's like full time. Podcast creating. Yeah, it's fun. I don't know.
Speaking of record labels, I don't know if anybody's a John Bellion fan out here.
Oh, okay.
John Bellion is working on a new album that is like self-produced, apart from labels, kind of rogue, because he started indie. his own label, which I think are not Ariana Grande. Who's the other one? TTT. Her name starts with Tori Kelly.
I mean, that's an artist. I don't know if that's who we're talking about.
Okay, I think that's her. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. For those of you who are John Bellion fans, you guys will know.
Also, you're a big Odessa fan, and Odessa's drop is. I know. Are you going to the Gorge?
I'm pissed. I was going
July 8th.
I was planning on it, but the only tickets that were left were like up, which is not bad.
should still
it's not
go.
bad. It's like
That's a fun
up in the grass, but
Dude, you
it
should
has
go.
a nice view.
Yeah.
So, but our buddy Matt is going, and he's
Matt Dealey?
yeah, he's like, you should come.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, Mark, you have to. You're like one of the biggest Odessa fans ever.
I don't know.
It's like-
I'm pissed. Listen, I'm pissed they dropped the blend with Camber.
I'm not
I'm like-
pissed because it's all
I'm not
Ryan's
pissed.
work.
I like it.
I'm jealous.
I like it. I'm jealous. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
I'm like,
Maybe I'm
what?
jealous. Maybe I'm jealous. That's it. But
Also, are you gonna go see Fred again anytime soon?
oh, it's high on my list.
Yeah.
I'm stalking his events coming
I would
up
go.
page.
If Fred again is playing in Seattle, I'll go. Yeah. Yeah. Mind Chatter was
That'd be
also really,
insane.
really good. Because I went to Mind Chatter in February.
Uh-huh.
That was really good. Wait, is this really that coffee?
It's okay.
Yeah, it actually, I did not realize that was the coffee until I thought about it.
What are you getting?
Dark cherry. Very dark cherry.
It's a little dry. Like it's not
No,
juicy.
well, yeah, it's not going to be juicy.
It's
Mark,
not.
you're like, we're sipping a quote unquote very, very developed medium roast.
Medium, yeah.
Yeah, and Mark's like, it's not juicy. Well, yeah,
it's not gonna be
like
juicy.
it's not supposed to be juicy. It's supposed to be sweet, big, heavy-bodied. I did grind it very coarse, so I actually, from tasting this, I think it's under extracted. But
Yeah. Honestly, it's, other than it's not juicy, sparkly, bright, doesn't have the vibrancy, but this is also not bad.
no, it's not. That's why I'm shocked.
If I walked into
Yeah.
a diner and this is what they gave me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, oh gosh, like this
Yeah.
is bad.
Not even a diner. Like, imagine you going to the Fork,
Yeah,
And getting
yeah,
this.
yeah,
like something like
like a restaurant,
like a restaurant.
like,
yeah.
This isn't bad, and it makes me wonder. Like, I wonder if, and
Some
again,
citrus,
this is
citrus.
yeah, this is
Tiny.
a pushed medium. So it's definitely different in the
Yeah.
cup than what we're used to and what we like
Yeah.
to drink.
Yeah.
But it just makes me think, cause like maybe that whole genre of coffees, maybe it just has so much more potential than what we're used to. You know what I mean? Maybe everybody just does a really bad job at it. That makes it
But
really.
what is it like? Jared and Chris have been talking about like good dark roast for a long time. I think
Yeah.
it was Jared and Chris. Maybe I'm confusing them, but someone, I feel like Cat and Cloud guys have been always talking about like a very nice developed roast of a coffee. Maybe it was them. Maybe I'm wrong.
Because
but
it's,
someone in the
because
industry.
it's like, for example, like somebody recently just came over, had a few friends over, and I made them, like an old roast of the geisha,
yeah,
and for him it was just like too sour, too bright. He doesn't really like sour coffees. Sour is just
yeah,
fruity and
Relative
nice
term,
and delicious.
yeah.
But that's just not his preference, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not like, you have a preference, it should be respected. But I'm like, his preference is more like chocolatey, round, a little darker. But I'm like, most of the coffees that are chocolatey, round, darker taste really bad.
Okay, I mean,
But
okay,
what I'm
can
what
I
I'm saying,
ask you-
no, what I'm saying is that it could be better. And if this was it,
so relative.
I can't find
Better
it.
to what? Oh, you mean within the context of that kind of developed
Yes,
roast?
that's
Oh,
what
I
I'm
see
saying.
what you mean.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
I'm saying
like,
those
not better.
Yeah,
As in like just roasted coffee light.
no, I'm saying
Yeah,
those
yeah.
medium
Gotcha.
pushed coffees
Yeah.
can actually taste not as bad as they're commonly, like, I don't know, like,
This still has acidity. It's not.
but it's
Void of
very
acidity.
it's very tamed.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, it's
like,
calm and
decently.
collective.
Yeah, it's calm. It's
Yeah.
it's calm, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential.
Are
Maybe
you not getting that on the nose? Unless it's the leftover geisha that you had in this cup and it didn't wash the cup good enough. But are you not getting the fruit on the nose? Like decent amount of fruit.
As it cools,
Like,
it
I don't
opens. Oh yeah,
My
I
cup
don't
smell
think-
different than yours?
Yeah,
I'm getting like almost like a red licorice, cherry.
I don't know.
It's a cacao. It does have a very heavy chocolatey, dark chocolate aftertaste, which is classic. It's like pushed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally forgot I brewed that coffee, and that's a big surprise.
Yeah.
Makes me less mad about serving this coffee to some folks that like it.
Yeah.
I mean, folks, we don't publicly sell this coffee on our website, so you probably won't find it. But if you're like a secret menu kind of person, yeah. We don't even have a label for this coffee.
Yeah, we don't.
No.
Yeah, it's one of those coffees.
Yeah.
So, so not too bad. Last part of our level up series, what we're diving into is we're gonna do a little bit of leveling up your palate. And leveling up your palate is probably one of the most important things in coffee. Because again, we mentioned this already, we're in the business of taste. So if you can't taste really well, then it's, arguably making coffee not as enjoyable for you. And number two, that's what this whole thing is about. So like if you literally can't taste, then none of this actually even matters. Like this whole podcast doesn't even matter. Roasting really well, like leveling up as a roaster, leveling up as a barista, leveling up as a cafe manager, owner. None of that even actually matters if you know what I mean. Like,
because the crux of it is flavor.
At the end of the day.
I think within that context, I also got to say the overarching theme of leveling up as a taster is everyone can taste. Apart from the freak tasters out there, the insane like palate people out there, like apart from those folks, everyone can taste. With that said, have you watched Drops of God on Apple TV? Okay, if you want to level up in your tasting game, I'm going to give you some very applicable advice, you two listeners. Go watch Drops of God on Apple TV. Absolutely fantastic show. It's based on a Japanese manga about someone who has a supernatural palate and that can taste, and they're battling it out for a inheritance of someone without giving much away. Need to watch it. And the reason I bring that up is because maybe I'm diving too quickly into this episode, but there's a part in the show where the main character goes into their mind palace to actually locate the flavors that they're smelling, because they can pick them up. They just don't know how to decode them. And that's what I mean by everyone can taste, is that majority of people who are consuming things, food, beverage, those kind of things, majority of people who are doing that and who are enjoying that, they can probably pick up the flavors. The challenge is they probably don't know how to decode them. Right? Or I think Lisa Farr was someone who told me a lot, was like, hey, everyone can cup coffees, everyone can taste coffees. Most of us just don't have language. So we don't need to taste better. We need to be able to communicate what we're tasting better.
Also kind of goes back to, a little bit, I'm just being reminded of our conversation about co-ferments,
right?
And the taste preference of different people. So I think there's one thing to say, like everybody can taste, unless you literally have some kind of health hindrance, and number two, everybody can taste, and number two is not everybody has the same preference. So those two things are distinguishable. Like for example, my buddy who came over and said, hey, this is just too sour for me. He's obviously tasting something that's sour, that's bright, and it's not his preference, which is totally acceptable, totally okay. And I think it's worth keeping those two things in mind without even realizing that the third variable in here is also objective quality. How do you taste? How do you grade coffees? How do you put what you're tasting, decode it, and then put it on a sheet to be able to grade? And I know for a long time, this is a side little rant, for a long time we were thinking about creating even our own kind of grading sheet almost, with kind of the things that we look out for in coffee. Like just a point metric for us to be able to grade our own coffees even,
Right, yeah.
and how we source.
Yeah.
But, following the framework of what the whole Level Up series was like curiosity. And I think the biggest thing is really just the thing that comes to mind is when with our geisha, when we're talking about passion fruit, I was like, I don't remember the last time I had passion fruit.
Yeah.
So I literally went to Hagen, local grocery store here, and couldn't find passion fruit, but I did find frozen passion fruit.
Yeah.
And I tasted it. I fell in love with passion fruit.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly the flavor that I'm tasting in the coffee.
Yeah.
I did not know that beforehand, but the curiosity of like, man, what does a passion fruit taste like? What does, I don't know, what does like jackfruit or dragon fruit taste like? What does a Meyer lemon taste like versus another kind of lemon? Or it's really just like trying to taste as many things and being curious and being able to help yourself decode those flavors by trying more things. Because if you've never tasted something, you're never going to call it out.
Yeah, because all of taste and flavor is linked to your memory, right? You can only recall a flavor based on memory. And memory and taste and scent, because majority of what we're talking about when we're talking about tasting is what we actually smell. That's what is helping us. Like a majority of taste comes through your I forget how to pronounce that word, gland.
Olfactory.
So that's why we slurp the way we do, is because we're spraying it and we're trying to figure that out. So a lot of that has to do with how you're able to recall those scents and flavors, whether it's from your childhood, just your memory bank, right? So developing that memory bank is key. Within the concept of curiosity, like you said, two things. One, when Maddie started introducing me to more of like the wine stuff, like you and I had wine before, blah, blah. So general consumers. But when I started diving into like tasting wine and wild fermented things, I'm not talking about just beer and hazy IPA. Those have flavor notes.
Right.
But getting into the more complex things, then again, like similar to coffee, it was just a different beverage, but it challenged me to, again, put the idea of like, okay, all wine tastes like X, right?
Right.
The way we say like all coffee tastes like coffee, but so what it helped me do is what it helped me with my tasting was like, I had to lay down the idea of what wine tastes like and start tasting wine for its flavor notes and for what's in the cup, right? What am I smelling? What am I picking up? And that exercise for the last, like that also was kind of the beginning of my cup tasters training. And then also being able to dialogue and conversate about those things with Maddie and then bring that into my training was kind of revolutionary in developing my palate, because it opened up ideas and thoughts of like, oh, I can actually pick up different elements, different flavor notes in a beverage that's different than this one. So that sparked my curiosity, but it also took me into a place where I had to learn about wine. Right. I had to do that. That's one thing. Two, the other thing is I was chatting to some dudes that I'm training at Narrative right now. And like, I literally asked him, I was like, dude, like, you've been here for a couple of months. Your palate has changed and grown a lot. What took you to the next level? And my homie Daniel was just like, when you told me to go to the grocery store, like you were saying, and just pick up stuff and taste it with intention, slowing down, and actually like thinking about what am I tasting? It changed everything. I mean, I literally do that for, Rain, for my daughter. Like she's a 3-year-old and I literally say, hey, what does this remind you of? I asked her, like, whatever, mac and cheese, what does that remind you of? Like, Maddie and I have given her, like, stuff to smell, like a cider, which, okay, disclaimer, I don't give my kid alcohol, but she can smell it. What does that taste like? And she's like, ew, yucky, that's pineapple. I'm like, you love pineapple. Why are you saying it's yucky? But she would say stuff like that. That was completely bonkers. Why? Because, well, she has a small memory bank, but when she remembers what pineapple tastes like, she's going to pick it out. But creating that kind of curiosity by going into different elements of flavor and taste is absolutely key. Sorry for that 10-minute rant.
That's great. I think that's a big part of it. And just pushing yourself outside, I think also would be beneficial, is like trying different cuisines, different kinds of food.
Yeah,
so
totally.
it's very easy to just be stuck in eating the same kind of food, and your palate just gets desensitized almost to it. Or something else that, this is very far out, but what if you cut out all sugar out of your diet? How is that going to affect your, how you taste things, how sensitive your palate becomes to certain flavor notes and stuff like that. I think also is, you mentioned your smell in your nose. If you have like either cologne or perfume around, is being able to just not even like distinguish it, but really intentionally just think about like what's in here that's making it smell this way. And just kind of trying, it's even just the intentionality of trying to decode it, and even letting your mind wander a little bit and kind of flexing that creative muscle in there about some of those aromas and smells. I think is very, very powerful and beneficial. Something more coffee, I think, focused that you can try is, well, we're just skipping around, but really is, we talked about cupping with people. Huge. Key. Just asking, man, some of my biggest growth times was literally cupping with other people and being like, man, what are you tasting? And then all of a sudden they say it, and then you're like, yes, that's it. And you couldn't quite pinpoint it, but somebody else could. And that lets you connect in your brain what you're tasting with what you should. Anyways, just drawing that parallel together. And I think on top of that also, if you're like a coffee roaster, or if you're a barista, or if you're a home barista, really is going out of the normal coffee consumption. Like literally drinking a coffee that's way more developed than what we enjoy drinking. Then like what our favorite is. Or maybe you've been very heavy into wash coffees, break out, go find some a natural. Maybe drink a coffee from a completely different origin. I know you may not like it, I get it, but just for flexing those muscles, because you need to get the reps in.
100%. I totally agree. One thing that you said that strikes me a lot is when cupping and tasting coffee with people. Even outside of cupping, like going to cafes with people and tasting coffees, and yes, being that person that's like the annoying, hey, like, do you like this coffee? That's fine. Do it to your friends, dude. Like, just do it to your friends. It's fun, and it's also like it helps you understand what people are tasting, helps you build up, like you said, that memory bank and organizing your like memory palace, like making sure that where things are. So when they do come up, you're like, oh, that's that. Like for me, the big one is like the smell of fresh mowed lawn is usually the smell that I decode that smell when I smell or taste watermelon. Maybe it's because when I did mow the lawn as a kid or as an early teenager, dad always brought out watermelon for some reason. Right. So like I have that linked, I can't unpair it. But when I smell it, I'm like, why does that smell like fresh mowed grass? Oh, it's because it kind of smells like watermelon. Specifically watermelon, not melon, but that. So it's like stuff like that, and being able to communicate and talk to that with other people out of blind cupping with other people is like absolutely crucial. Yeah.
Speaking of cupping, and we've already talked about this as well. Blind cupping.
Always.
None of this stupid bias stuff where you literally see the name of the coffee, the origin, the processing. You see the flavor notes in front of you, and of course you're gonna taste what the flavor notes are. Which again, there's some value to that, because you're trying to train your palate to match what you're tasting with the notes. And I think that's a lot of how early part of my like coffee enthusiast started, where I was like brewing a coffee, looking at the flavor notes on the back and thinking, am I tasting these things? Even though I don't think that's like the greatest approach, because it's somebody else's opinion on it, but it does help guide you in kind of a general direction until you can start to decode those things by yourself. But blind cupping literally helps you put your palate to the test and say, hey, unbiased, what do you think about the coffee? And I think that's beneficial because even cupping them from week to week and seeing if your flavor notes are matching up from week to week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of, because the reason why I think that's valuable is because it's like, how consistent is your palate?
Yeah.
Can you taste the same coffee at different times, different weeks, on different placements on the table, and still get the same thing? And challenging yourself to narrow that gap in differential. So
100%. And it's beneficial, like for us as roasters who own a roasting company, we kind of have access to the same coffee over and over again.
For sure.
And actually, like that's what I would recommend for roasters who want to level up in tasting. Like, what you just said, like do that. So, I think that's great. I love that. It's good stuff, Mark.
Yeah. In general, final thoughts on this level up series.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's been fun because especially with working in the cafe, I've been literally talking to people every week based on our topic, asking the question like, hey, what do you think about this? And it just sparked a lot of fun conversations in person with people for me. So I thought it was really great. It was very beneficial for me because it challenged me to, one, be curious. That's what we talked about. So like, as someone who wants to level up in the podcast game, like it pushed me in the space of like, hey, how do I be curious? And then also it pushed me in a space to do a little more research about things and do a little more. It challenged me in that area. And again, like sticking to the whole framework of this whole series, like for you and I, this is a fun experiment to see how folks enjoy that. And I think it's just been a good series. And hopefully the way it benefited me in that framework, I hope it benefited all the listeners. And that's why, let us know.
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of my favorite things about this series was like, I just love that it was just so practical.
Yeah.
Like our roaster episode is probably one of my favorites.
Nice.
And it was just like, so like 30, 40 minutes. I mean, outside of our tasting in the beginning, it was just pure practicality, like real stuff that if you tried it today and tomorrow, and if you took this framework and you kept going with it, this could literally really, really help so many people. And so that was really fun. But I think also, challenging myself is where can I level up? Outside of even these topics. So, it's been fun. So, I don't know. Final thoughts?
Let's do another series coming up.
Lovely.
Yeah.
There you have it, folks. That's a wrap for this level up series. If you know of somebody who needs to level up, low-key just slip them the link. Don't tell them you think that they need leveling up. Just slip them the link. Just be like, this might be beneficial for you.
Side note, whenever we say level up, one of the first things that rings, the tone of it in my head is coffee up.
Oh yeah, freaking dude. Oh yeah, that's good.
Level up.
We should have had him on the podcast. He'll say, man. What is that? Golden boy?
I don't remember. Coffee up.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you so much for listening to yet another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as we always say, remember, reflect what's good.